D1. Welcome to another narrative writing lesson. We are going to be working on lessons 6 and 7 today. 6 is going to be a little bit longer, while 7 is going to be pretty short. So what you're going to need for these lessons is your writing notebook as well as a pencil. And we are going to jump right into lesson 6. So in lesson 5, really quickly, I want to just touch up on it. We talked about word choice and how we want to use interesting and descriptive verbs, adjectives, and feeling words, as well as replacing the word said. So that way we can help make our writing a little bit more interesting. And to help make our writing a little bit more interesting, we are going to practice sensory details. And so before we begin and we start talking about that and looking at the examples Miss Walsh has here, we're going to go ahead and read this little paragraph up at the top. Continuing with your same topic or moment, think about the different sensory details that you experienced. Write a descriptive sentence for as many of the senses as you can. You can also write more than one sentence for a certain sense, or not include a sense that may not apply to your narrative. And so we have 5 different senses here. We have see, hear, smell, taste, and feel. So we have 5 different senses here. And as they said at the top right here, you may have a sense here that does not apply to your story. I know for me personally, taste does not apply to my story at all, so I will not be using taste. But you will need in total 5 different sentences using these senses. So keep that in mind, and we're going to go through and look at the examples to help you understand what your job is today. So we are going to go ahead. I am going to show you my first sense that I went ahead and talked about. My first sense I chose was sight, or I wrote see because that's what they said here. So my first sense of sight, meaning the things that I saw or that you see, I wrote a descriptive sentence. So I said the grand chandelier sparkled and shined. So here I'm using way descriptive adjectives to help the reader kind of imagine what it is that I'm talking about. So when I first walked into the building, I'm talking about the grand chandelier sparkled and shined. And so it's almost like I'm there and I can see it myself. For another sense, I went ahead and I said hear. So what I hear. And my sentence I said, as we got in the seats, we could hear the faint screams of other riders. And so again, I'm helping kind of paint a picture. I'm not just telling you, I'm helping you kind of imagine that you were there yourself, because it's almost like you can hear the faint screams in the background. Next up, I have smell. And for smell, I went ahead and said the bitter scent of coins wafted through the air. And so I'm helping again kind of paint an image of what I'm experiencing. So this is kind of the smell that I was smelling as I was getting ready to go on the ride. It was like a little bank is what the queue is. And so that kind of scent of coins was in the air, and it might be a familiar smell to you, so you can almost relate. And then here you'll see Miss Walsh made an oopsie, so we're going to ignore that one. That is why you use pencils, not pens. And we have our next one. You can see that I used the sense of sight a second time, which is acceptable. So I said see, and I said vivid images of Harry and his friends appeared asking for our help. Again, I'm being really descriptive about what I saw, so it's almost like you can see it as well. And then finally, I went ahead and I did feel or touch. And I said, as we climbed into our seats, I was shocked to find that they were a little wet. And even add an exclamation point to show my surprise. And so you can see that I included 5 sentences, and you are expected to include 5 sentences. Now, do you need to have each sense on your chart? No, you can see Miss Walsh did not put taste because that did not apply to her story. So you are only going to use the senses that apply to your story. So that might mean you have a lot more of see and hear, maybe feel, maybe smell, maybe not taste, maybe not smell, maybe taste. That is fine. You're going to make sure that you make your writing fit best for you and only you. So keep that in mind, but the expectation is that you have 5 sentences down. We are going to check during our Zoom on Thursday to make sure that you all have at least 5 of the 5 sentences for this chart. So make sure you get that done. And remember that this is just an example, so I should not see everybody's looking exactly like mine. It should apply to your writing and your moment. And then we are going to flip on over, when you are ready, to lesson 7. And in lesson 7, we are talking about using transitions. You should be familiar with transition words. We've talked about them before. When we were doing our ouch moment, our personal narratives for ouch moment. So we are just going to briefly read about transition words, and we're going to talk about selecting some transition words in just a moment. Transition words and phrases are a great way to help you move your story along. They also help in varying your sentence structure. When choosing a transition to start a sentence, be sure to choose one that makes sense and which fits the style and structure of the sentence. Sentences should flow nicely from one to the next. And so I'm really happy with a lot of the things that they said, and so I would like for you to take a color utensil of some kind, whether it be a yellow crayon, a yellow colored pencil, something to kind of highlight some things that I really want to point out. I really want you to go ahead and box where it says varying your sentence structure. To me, this is so important because I do not want to read the same sentence over and over again. I can tell you right now, Miss Lopez and I do not like it when we have to keep reading the same sentences over and over again. I saw this. I did this. This had a da 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 da. When it's the same boring way to start a sentence, it's not fun to read. And so you want your readers to enjoy it. You want Miss Walsh and Miss Lopez to be excited to read your writings. So make sure that we're using these transition words because it will help us start our sentences in different ways. And then I also want to highlight where it says fits the style and structure of the sentence. So it is telling us that we need to pick our transition words pretty carefully so that way we are making sense. If I am talking about at the beginning of my story, it would not make sense for me to say, in the end, da 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 da, right? That would not make sense. That wouldn't fit with the structure of the sentence. And so I would want to pick a transition word that would fit really well with my story. And so these are only some transition words. There's many more, but this is kind of to give you an idea. And so what your job is to pick one transition word for beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write this in the corner. You're going to pick one for beginning. You are going to pick 3 for middle. And you are going to pick 1 from the end. And so you need to have a total of 5 transition words when we are finished. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select mine. I'm going to say, it all started. I think that's very suspenseful, and so it makes me kind of excited. I already have a lot of ideas of how I can start my sentences with that. And then I'm going to look for 3 middle transition words. Next thing I knew, all of a sudden. And after that moment. And if you end up wanting to select a couple more in this middle section, that is totally okay. And then finally our end, and I'm looking, I'm going to select finally. And you are going to see that I chose 1 transition word for the beginning, I chose 3 for our middle, and I chose 1 for our end. Remember, you need 5 transition words in total. And that is going to be it for our lessons today. Remember, these jobs need to be done by tomorrow, so that way we can get moving on to our next lesson, lesson number 8. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. And as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, D1.